Welcome to the Daily Dharma, a gentle podcast where we read a philosophical story every week and reflect on how it relates to everyday life. Our focus is to use Buddhist philosophy to understand the complexity of modern life and find achievable and accessible pathways to peace and happiness. Hi everyone, welcome to the Daily Dharma. In this episode, we'll be talking about how we can move from feeling worthless to worthful. The story that we'll be reflecting on this theme is called Finding Worth in Being, and it comes from the book Zen Stories with Master Seiji by Daiki Shimada. Here is how the story goes. A retired man discovered Master Seiji in the crowded market where vendors screamed and youngsters ran between the stalls. Over the din, he asked, "Master Seiji, I've now retired, and unfortunately, I often feel quite useless. So, how do I find a purpose now?" Seiji, among the chaos, pointed to a stone on the ground. "So tell me, look at that stone on the ground. How many uses does that stone have?" he asked. Confused, the man considered. "Well, the stone could be a paperweight, a doorstop, or even a weapon. And if it just lies there doing nothing," Seiji pressed, It's useless," the man concluded. Seiji shook his head. "It's being itself, a stone. We assign purpose based on utility, yet it remains part of the world, effortlessly so. Your search for purpose in action misunderstands purpose as being." The man pondered, the market's noise fading as he focused. "So, my feelings of uselessness is like asking the stone to sing," Seiji interrupted. "Be. In being, purpose finds you, not in the search for it." The retired man left, the market noise now just a backdrop to his thoughts. A few weeks later, after their conversation, Seiji encountered the retired man again, this time assisting with a mobile library that served remote villages, making books accessible to those who otherwise couldn't borrow them due to distance and effort. Observing the man's engagement and the joy that had brought to both him and the villagers, Master Seiji approached him. "So, it seems that you have found a way to be the stone," Seiji remarked, watching the man hand out books with a serene smile. Hearing this, the man looked up with laughter that seemed to hold layers of newfound wisdom. "Yes, Master Seiji, indeed, I became the stone," he said. This story is actually quite adjacent and directly related to how many people feel when they retire, when they're laid off, when they are injured or in sickness, unable to do the household duties, that they usually do, because I think for many of us, from a very early age, we're very much conditioned to believe that our entire function and value as people is in doing things, whether it's doing well in school and performing well ourselves, or in being service of others and helping our family and helping others. Only then can we find any kind of value or purpose in life. But of course, the inherent problem with this way of thinking is that eventually, just as the retired man discovers, there comes a day where finding that function that instantly gives you gratification becomes so much harder. And another kind of added caveat is that oftentimes with old age, our body simply doesn't work the way that it used to. And so does our mind. And as a result, even though we had so many adventures or so many things we wanted to do, it just isn't as easy as we initially thought. And that's where Master Seichi's advice of try to learn to simply be really hits home, because we really do not give ourselves the chance to contemplate the real beauty that is to simply exist. And even in my own life, these moments of true stillness where I'm just able to simply enjoy the moment, to not ask myself anything in order to find value in the moment, are not that common. But when we start to allow ourselves to see this perspective, it is actually quite remarkable the amount of reduction in anxiety and restlessness that we feel. This is especially true for me on days where I am so tired, physically, mentally, and overwhelmed, maybe even upset over something that has happened. But there is a little voice inside of me that is nagging. Why aren't you studying? Why aren't you working? Why aren't you cleaning? Why are you just sitting here being upset? What's the point of being like this? But thankfully, there is another voice that says, well, even if I weren't upset or overwhelmed, what's wrong with simply sitting here? I may not get this kind of moment for a while. So why not take the luxury of the time I have right now simply to sit? And then that other nagging voice becomes quiet. And in a sea of frustration and stress, I could bring myself back to the simple appreciation of what a beautiful thing it is simply to be sitting down, taking deep breaths, enjoying the beautiful afternoon sun or the sundown, and just allowing myself, giving myself permission to enjoy the moment or even just be in it. And there is a tremendous weight that is lifted off our shoulders when we allow ourselves to simply be. But due to so many factors, such as our cultural conditioning, societal conditioning, just the way that we are meant to function in this world, simply being is probably one of the hardest things we can ever do in life. But that doesn't mean that we can't start to begin to work towards it, because otherwise all those nagging voices will make us feel worthless when that inevitable day comes where we're simply not able to fulfill those functions that used to give us value. The day will come for all of us when we will need to learn to simply appreciate and find value in simply being. And this process, even if you can still actually fulfill the functions that you have, is so valuable, because instead of being filled with the restless anxiety of having to constantly do to feel worth, to feel valuable, you are now filled with the confidence, peace of knowing that even if you don't fulfill a function that serves value, you are still full of value and worth. And that, to me, is one of the most important precursors to peace that actually lasts and that endures in times of deep turbulence and frustration. Thank you again for listening to this podcast, and thank you for everyone for all of your beautiful notes and kind emails that you've been writing. This week has been particularly difficult. We had some flooding in the basement. We had some leaks. Everything is okay now, but I have always meant to reply much sooner to the beautiful emails, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for writing me. I read every single one and I appreciate it so deeply. If you'd like to write me an email, please email me at dailydharmapodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. And as always, may you have a beautiful, safe, and joyful week ahead of you. Until next week.